Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. This thing with Zuffa, the Ali Act, fighters, I'll tell you this. Zuffa, they're very powerful. Seem a bit disorganized, but like they're trying to sort some things out. But this thing about the Muhammad Ali Act, it has some people very uncomfortable. It's gained so much attention as far as Dana White and Turki Al-Sheikh and other people behind the scenes who want to make amendments to the Muhammad Ali Act. It's gotten so much attention to where you have Nico Ali Wash and Oscar De La Hoya actually out there speaking at the White House. I got a little 1 minute clip of Nico Ali Wash, and just listen to some of the stuff he's saying.
So I don't know if you've seen the Zuffa Boxing events, but if you have seen the events, it, from my perspective, looks very plain. It looks very corporate. In current boxing, you have the freedom to have those sponsorships, unlike in Zuffa, where you're forced to wear their trunks or you're forced to not have certain amount of sponsors or whatever their rules may be in their contract. But that's what makes boxing important to me. And as a fighter, I know that having those sponsorships gives the fighters more money. It's only for the fighters. And if the new Revival Act was truly for the fighters to put more money in the fighters' pockets, they're moving that same UFC model over to boxing. You can see it through their events already. Mm-hmm. And if that model were truly for the fighters, you wouldn't see the $375 million antitrust lawsuit that's going from that the UFC had to settle. You wouldn't see former UFC fighters complaining about pay. You wouldn't see current UFC fighters begging for raises in their pay. If that model truly worked and if it was truly for the fighters, you wouldn't be hearing so much about money from these UFC fighters.
You know, the one thing he says that gets my attention is the possibility of those guys not being able to acquire sponsorships. Now, I think that's very important because once they're done fighting, they're basically unemployed. You know what I'm saying? They're basically unemployed. Having sponsorships, man, allow a fighter to have a source of revenue outside of just them boxing. So he's right, it puts more money in their pocket. But it drives the question, like, what does Zuffa really represent? Because to me, it looked, outside looking in, I don't know, looks pretty good. But I know it represents a centralized system, kind of like how the UFC is being ran. You got one promotional company, controls all the matchmaking, one brand controls the visibility, and one structure controls fighter contracts. And that model works in MMA, but boxing has always been different. But people are resistant to change, and that's why there's this fear of losing control. Boxers, they're used to negotiating their own deals, choosing promoters, managers, securing individual sponsorships. Under that Zuffa style system, seems that fighters are worried about less independence, less negotiating power, and less flexibility in career decisions. But there are some pros to it. You're gonna get paid. You'll fight several times a year, and even if you don't fight, they pay you anyway. So, I mean, on the outside looking in, I think there are gonna be pros and cons, but I think the big one is really sponsorship and revenue concerns. Everybody's really about the money. In boxing today, fighters can wear their own sponsors, secure outside endorsement deals, build independent brands. In a UFC-style model, sponsorships are often centralized. Fighters may be limited in what they can promote. Revenue streams can shrink outside fight purses, and that's why many fighters feel we can make more money overall in the current system, even if it's messy. So we need a voice out there in D.C. to speak on behalf of leaving the Muhammad Ali Act the way it is. But I'm going to tell you this whole thing about uniformity, there's a uniformity problem. Just from me watching the last few events, Zuffa, that system tends to standardize their gear. Someone like to give you a backpack, short shirt, wear this. It's a uniform. They have controlled branding and very limited personalization, so the individuality is gone. But for fighters, that's a huge problem because individuality equals marketability. You know what I'm saying? And boxers thrive on personality. They thrive on their style. They thrive on their unique branding. And uniformity can make fighters feel replaceable instead of unique. You become more of a number. It's how some people feel about this. Now, the trade-off here, and I'm trying to give you an honest balance, right? What fighters like about Zuffa-style structure: consistent fights, organized matchmaking, reliable schedule. What they don't like less freedom, they don't like less upside financially, and less control over their image. They don't like that. So this is a very big shift for boxing. Boxing has always been fragmented. It's been negotiation heavy. I always hear that I'm the A side, you're the B side. You always hear those talks. And it's always been star driven. You work to a certain point, become a draw, and you start to make money hand over fist. Zuffa wants to make it more structured, centralized, and league-like. Now, I'm going to tell you, that sounds efficient, but it changes the entire business model. It really does. And this is why fighters are divided. Some fighters don't care. They weren't really fighting, weren't making a lot of money. Now they're on Zuffa, and they're like, whatever it takes. As long as I'm fighting and making money, I can take care of my family. Because it's giving me structure. It's giving me stability. But others feel like, all that structure is cool, but they're taking control over my money. And I don't want to deal with that. So the Muhammad Ali Act and the way it is, look, it matters. Because the Muhammad Ali Act was created to protect fighters from exploitation, prevent promoters from having too much control, which is what Zuffa is going to do, and to ensure financial transparency. And it's being debated because they want to expand the Ali Act. They want to modify the Ali Act and possibly applying it differently to new structures like Zuffa Boxing, which, again, people are resistant to change. Some see this as a good thing, others see it as a bad thing. You got De La Hoya, you got Nico Ali Walsh. They're speaking out. They believe changes could reduce fighter protection, allow promoters to gain too much control, and shift power from the athletes. And I think there's a much deeper concern that if the Ali Act is weakened or changed improperly, fighters can lose transparency in pay, negotiation leverage, and legal protections. But when I look at it, it just makes me think it's only about business. Everything is business, business, business. So why fighters are nervous? In boxing, income comes from fight purses. But if you're not fighting, you're not able to make pay-per-view shares, well, you depend on the sponsorships and brand deals. But in a system with limits, let me tell you that even if you start to limiting one of those, total earnings can drop significantly. So I understand them wanting to protect that for the fighters. But in that Zuffa model, this is the thing. They're going to give you stable income, frequent fights, and even if you don't have a fight schedule, they can't get you a fight. I think if you guarantee to fight 3 times a year, if they can't get you a fight, they pay you anyway. Your full fight purse. So I think the boxing model is riskier, but higher earning potential at the top. But going to Zuffa model, I think you got stable income and you don't have to worry. Yeah, it's not rolling the dice and seeing if I can hit the jackpot and get a big win and go out here and blow up and start to make gazillions, but you guarantee the salary. And it's going to be good money, more than what you're making. So right now, would fighters trade their freedom for a higher ceiling? Well, freedom and a higher ceiling. That's how I'll put it. You got freedom, you got a higher ceiling. But then if you're not one of those big names in boxing, then you probably need structure and consistency and guarantee pay. And I think that's what the argument boils down to, So when you look at the future, I don't think this is a business debate. It's about who controls boxing, how fighters get paid, and what the sport becomes. It's really what I think it is. So possible outcomes, Zuffa, if they succeed, I mean, boxing becomes more structured, fighters lose some independence. And this is just for those who signed to Zuffa. Those outside of Zuffa, they keep doing business as usual. It's just for those signed to Zuffa. Now they are going to be subject to, whatever they decide, however they decide to structure their organization. But if fighters resist, the current system will stay. Chaos will continue. But if they go with a more hybrid model, which I think could be a good idea, you got structure and freedom balance. And I think this is the most likely outcome, and I hope that's the outcome. Give them the structure and make sure they got the freedom balance. Let them go out there and secure sponsors. Even if you say you get 30%, 25% of the sponsorship deals, I mean, you put it in there and have a conversation. I think it's kind of foul, but hey, it's just a conversation. So I don't think fighters hate the structure. I think every fighter likes the structure. I just think they're cautious because structure often comes with control. Control affects the money, and money defines careers. At the same time, I think they do want activity, stability, and big opportunities. And we just got to wait and see what the outcome is. But man, shit's getting a lot of attention now. But I think whatever Dana White and Turk Al-Sheet wants, I think he's going to get passed. That's just my opinion. Y'all keep cool. I'm in the breeze.